Oh, yeah. Welcome everyone, welcome councillors, welcome staff members of the press, and a special welcome to the public that are here to assist us. Thank you very much. I haven't had the chance to run through the run sheet with you. Does everyone have a run sheet so they know where they are? We're starting with, I'll just read first names: Anne, Max, Gwenna, Stu, Garth, Craig, Theron and Trevor. So that's the poll position. So do I have to reconvene the meeting? I am reconvening the meeting. I have an apology from Councillor Ludeman. Has anyone heard from Councillor Barron? And McCrosty. Okay, we'll take it that there's no chance, my apologies, but is someone able to ring Councillor Barron and Crosty? I do know that Ellie's away for a personal reason.
I'll try and ring too.
But so at the moment, all we can do is take the official apology that we have from Councillor Ludeman. Can someone move Councillor Bell, seconded Councillor Kennedy? All those in favour? Right. Our first member of the public here to help us is Ann Barnett. Team, it's on page 372. Is Ann there? Yeah. Welcome, Ann. If you could please come forward.
Excuse me.
Just, sorry.
I have a clue for now.
Which one was that?
McCrosty.
Right, has anyone heard from Kim? No. Not to worry. Welcome, Ann. Floor is yours.
Hello, kia ora. I'm Ann Barnett and this is Racy Tay. Brian, sorry. We're here on behalf of the committee of the Tuapeka Vintage Club. At present, we have no toilet facilities and limited parking spaces at the western end of Lawrence, and we as neighbours are concerned. The current toilet amenities are at the other end of town. The drawback being they're too far away, evident, unfortunately, by human waste being found within the domain. It's not nice as neighbours or visitors. It's not only a public health and safety need, it gives a negative impression upon the township of Lawrence and the Clutha district. Parking is often stretched, especially when there are a lot of motorhomes or events in town, hence cars being parked on the verges. We sit at the entrance to Gabriel Gully Historic Site, include the Gold Trail, the local domain, Bellevue Wetlands, and the Lawrence Bike Trail. Lawrence hosts Heritage Day, various horse and motoring activities, and Century Farms, but to name a few. All drawing people into town. Increased volumes of public in the vicinity, the current resources are not up to the job. This increase in tourism is great, but not if people can't park or find human waste lying around. We take pride in historic Lawrence and don't like seeing the negative outcomes. What we're proposing is a new toilet facility at the Steep Street entrance to complement the existing facility at the night and day and to be close to those for whom it will be of use. For it to be a 2-unit unisex disabled access amenity. We propose for it to be constructed to look like an old miner's cottage, so to be in keeping with our historic setting. For the gardens and the road reserve alongside the Vintage Club to be turned into angle parking to allow safety for all road users. Both of these proposals we feel, of benefit to the destination Clutha vision of the entrance of Gabriel's Gully. The visitor experience hinges around the visual appeal of interesting heritage buildings, places to park, and a clean environment. Thank you for allowing us the time to present our case to you. Ngā mihi. Questions?
Thank you for that, Ann. And Brian, questions, Team Councillor Finch.
Thank you for your submission. Welcome. Have you got an approximation of cost?
No, we haven't, sorry.
And we haven't got any of your financials to let us know anything about your finances.
We didn't think that would be something, because we're not asking for it on behalf of the club. We're asking for this on behalf of for the community. This is what would like to be a public facility for the public to use, not for something for the
Not
for the
for the
club
club.
to use. Yeah.
Right, okay. And what times and days are you open?
We're open on Sundays between 1 and 5, but we're also open periodically other days during the week as we wish to do working bees or we have events ourselves.
And do you charge a fee for people to go through your facility?
We do is $5 a adult. Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
collective with Stevie's next door, $10, they get $5 each. Another highlight that I noticed last week after our meeting was the lack of lighting that's cut from between the main street and say coming over the bridges now. Jock will realise what that's all about. It's also the exit for our local tanker. There's a couple of things happening there on that bridge, if I may just add into it. There's a hydrant that's sitting right, a hydrant top that's sitting right on top of the principal hydrant, and there's sinking beside it. It's just something I just noticed. Needs to be brought to somebody's attention.
The
Sorry, I
staff,
digress. As far as costing goes, we are looking at an approach of interest to this. That's what we're looking at, and what it's going to take. There's this roading going to be done. Especially for the car parking. There's water tabling to be sorted. We possibly shift our entrance as it is now. Another width entrance towards the bridge. We have car parking at right angles within our precinct, but from the new driveway in up towards Stevie Robertson's would be angle parking. Stevie is inclined to go with it with angle parking right to his driveway at his place, which would make a hell of a difference. It's quite wet and soft in there. We know our boundaries are on the road boundary. So where we've got them at the moment is probably not right. They need to come back a bit. He's quite au fait with that. I can add to that as well.
yeah,
There's quite a bit of interest in this. 2 years ago, Stevie brought up about human waste in his property from the cycle track. And now we've got it right at our back door on Steep Street. So just go a few metres and onto the Steep Street itself, go into the right about 4 or 5 metres, that's where you start to find it.
and is that frequent?
Yes, at least once or twice a month, not more. Yeah. The guys that work on that piece, that volunteer group that works on that, are discovering this more and more. They see there's more and more involvement on more parts of the track. And you may have already heard about the light guys and that, what they're doing. It's going to come out into Steep Street. Well, that's not talking 10 or 15 people, they're talking lots on the cycle track. So it's going to be the end part for that as well. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
Right. Cheers.
Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you for your submission today. I just noticed in the Tuapeka Vintage Club report that the club room isn't hooked up to, you're not hooked up to water and sewage there.
No, we're on the
No.
septic tank, so that will,
Okay.
that is something that we need to address is to get hooked up.
There's 3 places can be hooked up there. I was a bit disappointed we went off with that when they were put all that in there.
Okay.
We probably, with a bit of a nudge, we probably would have got joined that straight away. Something's going to have to be done. We're talking about this, and the 2 people out further, if it happens, we could probably all hook on at the same time while the gear is there, instead of people running back and forwards all the time, accumulating lots of coin.
Thank you.
All right.
Councillor Graham.
Thank you for your submission. Just correct me if I'm wrong, this isn't included in the Our Place Lawrence? Consultate wasn't included in that at all?
If I can speak to that through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it is. It's part of the Gabriel's Gully entrance community plan. So it's possibly more of a discussion around that community board as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Worship. Welcome, guys. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to come down and talk to us. Just a simple question. Time frame, is it tomorrow? Is it next year? Or could it be a year after? I mean, what are you guys thinking?
We've been talking that this is going to be a 2-year ahead thing. There's got to be some planning done to it.
Yeah. So that could be 27, 28 by the time we get there, like 24, 25.
But,
27, yeah.
We're thinking of something that could be chased along to have a time frame within the next couple of years would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, the human waste is happening.
Yeah.
And it's gonna keep happening. Yeah, and that's why we're bringing this, because we sort of think we're the neighbours and we don't like it. Well, visitors to our town, they aren't gonna like it either, and it's gonna discourage people. Toilet that's in keeping with the historic atmosphere of the town, I think would go a long way.
And there's, over recent years, there's been quite a few iterations of where the next toilet should go in Lawrence. And I must say that I'm not 100% sure what the number one Lawrence preferred option is. Has your theory been backed by, say, the community board? Have you got that wider community buy-in so that we are considering the option instead of the scramble of which one it is?
We have talked to the community board.
I mean, Jock can probably answer to that better.
Excuse me, through you, Mr. Chair. It has been talked to in conversation with the community board. There's public toilets are 800 metres to one side of the area that they're talking about, and with the other toilets going into the market reserve, it'll be pretty similar distance to those toilets. So I'd like to think that after the installation of the market reserve toilets, we should see a lesser of this going on. So that's if we're attributing it to the cycle trail people, but I don't think that would be solid.
As I should say, there's quite a few people use that area. It's only going to be exacerbated when you get the bike trails start up and running, and even more people. I think some of the problems caused by Freedom campers that don't have the required facilities, but soon we don't catch them. We don't know exactly who's doing what they're doing. Yeah, it's just not a good look for town.
Further questioning, team? If not, thank you, Ian. Thank you for the assistance, Brian. Appreciate you helping us with the process. Charlotte. Okay, everyone, page 116. Our next speaker is Max Harrison. Welcome, Max. Welcome. The floor is yours, Max.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors. Who'd be a councillor? Right. I hope you have all got the message that most ratepayers are not happy with your talk of rate rises, especially in the sheep and beef sector. I guess we're all having serious conversations with our bank managers. It's bad enough trying to keep a farm functioning without extra burdens of rate rises. Not only got it from you, we've got it from Otago Regional Council. So just, I hope you're taking notice of that it's really impinging on your ratepayers. The other thing I would like to state is, I don't know what's happening, but I hear there are a lot of stuff-ups been happening with council and bits and pieces like that, going from the sewerage scheme to your huts at Milton. Stuff-ups cost money, so please avoid them. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Questions, please, team. Councillor Graham.
Probably not a question, but a statement, very tame submission there, Max.
You're lucky, you're lucky. I could find a crutch around the room, but I won't.
Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Richard. Welcome, Max, up from the deep south, I suppose, south coast. Hey, look, I've got one. I just note here, and you've rated quality housing and healthy, safe communities right down really low at number 1, but you've rated roading, efficiency of roads at number 5. Just, you got any context around that for us?
Well, roading is a priority function of the Cleveland District Council, is it not? And I guess social housing is one of the nice to haves. If you haven't got money to spare, where are you going to find money for social housing? Do you get it from the government, which I feel it is the government's job? Some of the social housing that is around Balclutha, some of the flats and things, I've been in 1 or 2 of them, or a few of them, and I would like the architect of some of them to have to live in them for a while. Okay?
Thanks, Max. That's confused me because you've just rated it as a 1 and yet you want it to improve.
Yeah.
I'm confused. Yeah. No, that's fine.
Further questions, Tim? Councillor Martin.
Good afternoon, how are you? I just see under the Kaka Point toilets and the Surf Lifesaving Club, so that's combined a total of $750,000 with the total rating cost over $8.72 per annum for the 10 years. So that's basically going over the whole complete district.
Well, look, I just can't remember what I put, but I thought that if you're building new toilets, you work in with Surf Lifesaving. If it works for them, and it works for you guys, it's a win-win, isn't it?
Thank you.
Councillors, anything else? If not, thank you for your assistance, Max. Appreciate it. Can I just note, Councillor Barron, welcome Councillor Barron, welcome Councillor McCrosty, been recorded. Done. Thank you for that. The next one is on page 111. Welcome, Gwynnie. So Gwynnie is from Grey Power. Thank you for coming along and assisting us, Gwynnie. You're going to pull out the hammer. Oh, could have been anything. Sledgehammer.
That's what my plan looks like. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to come along and talk. I'm just going to talk from the heart. So my role is president now of Grey Power South Otago. Prior to that, I was working at Age Concerns, so I've been playing around with the ageing sector for seniors for a couple of 3 years and doing a lot of investigation in the community. And just to bring some background to that too, is what I discovered over those years and researching was that that major decline, which you're probably aware of this, decline of all the groups in South Otago, the things like the focus groups, the widows and the widowers, the Lions Club, the Rotary are looking at reinventing themselves, and all those groups are in decline. And a lot of us put it down to the COVID, and I'm going to say it's not COVID. We are now moving into, I believe, is a crisis, and we need a major paradigm shift for the future, because the future's not us in this room, we're the olds, but we've got the young people coming through. But anyway, I'm here to represent Grey Power. We had a meeting about 3 weeks ago, and the purpose of that originally was around what do the people say, what do the oldies say about their own lives, instead of a lot of us others assuming what we think we know it is, and a lot of decisions are made on assumptions. There's been a bit of research work in the community, but that's also more talking to providers than anything else. And they too can have assumptions about what the needs are for the old people. So we held this meeting, and it happened to be at the same time as this meeting here. So we put the two together. We invited Brian down and a couple from his team to come down and help us with the process. And we had about over 30 people there putting down what they think what they say that their needs are and what they would like to see. That's the document that you've got. Don't take any other notice of anything else in that other stuff, because I was made it up as I went. When it comes to political stuff, it's not my field of expertise, but the needs of the people is. So there were two key points for services that the oldies wanted retained. That is the swimming pool and the library. Now those two places are frequent often by the seniors because it's about their health and well-being, and it's also about their relationship with their community in the library. So it's a very important part of the sector. The second thing is key points that came through from the group were the area of housing and the cost of living, as we know, communication and transport. Well, we know there's a lot of those things we can't do much about because we aren't here to bitch about the council, because I think the council's done a pretty good job over the years. What you've inherited is history to a point of the point we're at now, where I do believe that we need a paradigm shift. I believe that that next 10 years is going to be crucial for this district, whether it's going to be sustained or not. All of us here will be the baby boomers going into the next retirement round, so we need to have a senior strategy with consultation from the older people about what is the pathway for this community for seniors. A lot of them are saying, we don't know what's going on. They're not going to come to a meeting like this. You've got to go to them. So my question of councillors is, how many of you have gone to visit some of the senior groups, like Jenny's group, the companionship, like the senior citizens, like Age Concern, like the widows and the widowers, senior sits? So that's where you're going to find out what the issues are for the ageing population. We've got our own story, but it's not everybody in the community. I'm looking at the poorer sector and those that are struggling. So I think council might have to consider, what grassy verge are you happy for our campers, our old people, to put their tents when they can't afford to live? Because the power's gone up. So it's not even just about the rates going up. The power's gone up. The food keeps rising. Medical costs keep rising. So the solution is, I don't know. The solution is, what are these old people going to do when they can't? Some of them are still paying a mortgage. Now, when you look at the pension, it's lucky they've got a house over their head actually at this stage. In the future, this is not going to happen because they're not going to be resistant. So I don't want to pay rates like the Ratepayers Association is saying. They're not going to pay the rates because they bloody haven't got the money. So we need to be thinking about, what strategy are we going to do for these seniors? So the other thing is that one of the big things is about the transport. You know, token gesture from the regional council to give us the taxi chits. To get a taxi from Kyan to town, it's very expensive. They can't afford it. You take even $10 out of that pension pocket to go and get their groceries. They can't use computers to actually buy it online, get it delivered. So these are the issues they're facing. Now, this is my personal grid. I went to that meeting that day and I actually had a conversation with Brian there, and it was really good. And I went away and I couldn't sleep that night. And I thought, what needs to happen? That's kind of scary about how many of you are going to step down in the next round and they're going to retire from council. Who's going to take over? And we keep talking about the youth and trying to encourage the youth to come in and stop them from leaving the town. But the way we're going about it's not going to work. It hasn't worked so far. So we need to be going around the other way. I think about things like mentoring programs. get some of those high school kids or high school leavers that are on the verge of having an interest in their local town, having an interest in politics, having an interest or an investment in the other people in their community. So that's my question for council. You've got to go to the people. I just recently went into a whacker with age concerned, set up a group in there, and I rang someone on the council, say, hey, I'm in your town, I'm coming in. And he said to me, oh, we're all good down here, the oldies are all good down here. So I went back to the senior citizen and I says, hey, if you had a visit from the councillor from Waka, and they go, no. So how could he speak for those old people? So how many of you in this room have actually gone to the old people and had a conversation without putting your ideas in? But listen to them. We need to be watching out for our older people. If we can't watch out for our older people, who's gonna? We've got the young ones coming through. Who's going to get alongside those young ones and going to walk alongside them? Because they are the future. We're the past. I'm getting into my mode here. So that's what I want to say. If you want to ask me any questions, you can. I might not know the answer. When you look at your piece of paper there, don't take any notice of it. Take note of that list. That's what I want you to do. Think about our seniors. Stop being a bitch club. Stop the community. The community needs to stop being a bitch club. It's not helping. And some of us people are sick of hearing about the bitch club. That's including the local ratepayers. Over it. We need to be moving forward and we need the young people to help us do that. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Got any questions, please, team? Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, and thank you for your submission. So do you realise, you talk about the youth here, you realise we have a youth council?
Absolutely. So why haven't we got a senior one?
Well, wonderful. People might presume this is actually it.
So maybe, so is it working? Are you getting your, I don't see any young people sitting in the room. So you need to be rethinking.
Yep.
You need to be not going into those young people with your head.
I'm not, but
Oh,
that's
that's
just for
just the
clarity.
thing. We can't talk on behalf of somebody else, particularly a different generation. Okay?
Councillor Grant.
Thank you. I don't know if I might have missed it, but I see in your list you've got bus service from Clyde to Balclutha and transport to Dunedin.
Yep.
These are probably more regional council issues.
Yep, that's what I
So
said.
you-
They're not,
you-
they're doing tokenism. We need you guys to advocate for us as well.
So
We
you're
need to
putting
all
submissions in
advocate.
yourself though?
Hey,
You're putting submissions in yourself to the regional council
the
as
regional,
well?
we do that regionally. So Grey Power is we've got a federation and we're made up of zones. And anything that's going into the to the regional council goes in by a zone. So I'm here for the old people for here. So you got me now. I'll be back.
Further questions, team?
And I'm not growling at you, I'm just stating it how I see it. And
Councillor Martin.
Thank you for your submission.
who's that?
So, John Martin from Lawrence. How big a reach have you got? Are you just talking Balclutha and Kaitangata, or do you go to
No,
Milton,
we're in
Lawrence?
South Otago and we'll be moving into your area too.
Right.
We've got members of Grey Power that are in Lawrence, Clinton, right down to Tapanui, Milton, all around.
Lovely. So you're
so-
getting a good representation.
And
throughout the
Grey
district.
Power almost closed down as well. Now that's pretty serious, so it's not going to. We're not going to let it. Okay, we're actually starting to, just in the last month, we've had another 20 members join up, so we'll be here to be the voice.
Lovely.
to
Yeah, my
advocate.
question was that you do represent the whole of council.
Absolutely. Same as Age Concern does as well.
Keep up the good work.
And you've got a
Thank you.
fella on the governance over the back. Good man.
Councillor Payne.
Thanks, your worship. Yeah, no, we had a meeting last night and it was really good. It was really productive, to be quite honest. Just look, I think the overarching message here is that, hey, we need to be getting out with the elderly and
Yep.
there's a big list of things here, but the overarching message that you want to get across the line is that we need to be getting out and enabling people.
Yeah, and
Yes.
have a senior strategy.
Yeah, yeah. So the frequency of meetings for something like Grey Power and numbers and things like that, Oh, yeah,
That's
well, give me an
all
example,
right.
give me Balclutha, for instance.
Yeah,
Yeah, once a month, is it?
well, us.
Yeah.
Well, last year they didn't hardly meet at all, but we're pulling it right in where we have zone meetings once every couple of months. We meet face to face twice a year for the whole area. And then the group of the committee will meet probably once a month. And then the group with the members meets every couple of months.
And do you advertise this in the paper, Goody, do you, or not? So we
That's
know
for the
when
minute,
you're on.
so we're getting into that. So if you want to give us some money for promotion, that would be really helpful. Mind you, I must admit, some of the locals have been really good and they're going to support that. We're having a seniors expo in March next year. So I've already invited about 22 groups that come to this town as supporting the elders, seniors. And we're going to be meeting together, but we're also want to invite some of the service groups, other things like social groups like the widows and the widows, so they can show what is actually available. One of the things, the feedback on this here was about some people didn't know what was available. And if you look at, I'll go online at the council's website, nothing's up to date. So I know I spent 6 months trying to chase down who was running what in the town. And still haven't got it all, but anyway, we're getting there. But it's about, that needs to be all pulled together because there's so many isolated islands working in silos and we need to work together, which includes the council.
Goody, there is no substitute for passion and you are a champion, so thank you.
Okay.
Councillor
That's
Finch.
me.
No, it's not you. We decide when we finish questioning.
Oh, okay.
You're still getting grilled, Winnie.
Oh, are you?
Councillor,
Oh,
yeah,
we
God, we
didn't
didn't
grill
stop
you.
that quickly. Councillor Finch.
Hi, I'm Gaynor, I'm from Milton, and so you know the Bruce project Bruce in Milton?
Yep,
So that has like a hub for everybody
Yep.
to get together, so have you connected with them?
yep.
Wonderful, thank you, so that'll let
And
you
I'm
know.
shifting to Milton in about 2 weeks, so look out. I'm coming your way.
Good, well done, it's
Yeah.
a great place to live,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
And I must say, the toilets in the heart of town here in Balclutha are very good for old people who run short. Okay?
Good.
Gwynny, firstly, thank you for going above and beyond because I know that you've put a lot of effort into this year's plan and also the challenges that the council face with the issues. You will have seen even in your short time here today, there's polarising camps and I've told you to stop. And then yourself that, and on top of that, so there's the wants to have and the wants and the needs.
Yep.
But then we're still faced with the, and I keep asking people, over the next 10 years, $611 million for Three Waters CapEx and OpEx, spread primarily between 6,947 people. That's the impossible, wants, needs, impossible. We know it's impossible.
Yep.
What do you say, your group, the general sentiment of your group, is it to stop or to keep going? Stop projects or keep the projects going, per se?
Well, I'm here to not because it's not about, it wasn't about the future planning originally.
Yep.
But what we've met is about what are the needs, what are people saying their needs are? So originally it was about that, and then because it was the same time, originally there's never been a plan for the older people, so that's what I wanted to see happen. Now that it coincided with you guys, I was more about getting our voice into here about what their needs. It's not about the wants, it's about what the needs are. And I think we've already documented and what those needs are. When we're not asking for money, you know. This is not about money.
Bless you.
It's not about money. It's about the voice of the seniors.
Yep.
And it was asked of things like, what are the ideas? Well, half the time we don't know, do we? Because we've got an old head. We need to get the young people and need to be maybe rethinking how you're doing that, because a couple of them's not enough. Get into the school.
So I will say, and I am proud of the council's position of just to check that you are aware, we've got council advocates and workers in the school. Our youth council over recent years some of the advocacy work they've been doing around diversity, meth campaign, they've led some really strong
Yep.
challenges that are in our society, and I'm so proud of our youth voice at the moment. So I do believe that we've got a really strong youth voice in our district, and one that is the envy of. I haven't seen any other council have such advocacy from the youth coming through on the meth, the diversity, the bullying, the alcohol. That they've taken on the issues, they've had the courage. So I'd have to speak in awe of our youth council and the general, just the decency of our youth in our district.
So I want to feed back to you on that too and say that's really good, and I agree, you've done an amazing job. In fact, I think the council has done an amazing job of what you're faced with. The difficulty is now is not just leaving it there. It's about creating those pathways for the future, not just for today, but about the future. And how are you going to have some young people sitting around this table? And that's what we need. We need the fresh ideas. We need it from their worldview, because they view it different to us, as you know. Thank you.
Any further questions? If not,
Thank
Winnie,
you.
thank you very much. Appreciate your assistance. Stu there, please. Welcome, Stu. So Stu's on other folder, page 379. Welcome, Stu. Floor's yours.
Kia ora, and thank you for your time today. My name's Stu Bryce and I'm the Regional Manager for Surf Life Saving New Zealand. I look after clubs from Nelson in the north down to Reading in the south. I understand you've got a large number of submissions, so I'll keep it relatively brief and answer any questions at the end. Surf Life Saving New Zealand works with the clubs through advocacy and support in the voluntary level, and we also work with a number of clubs around our weekday patrols, which I'm here to submit for, delivering services on the primary school holidays through funding through local communities. This can range from 6 to 8 weeks, and in some parts of New Zealand up to 5 months. As you can see from our submission, we request that the Clutha District continues the support of the paid lifeguard service, which is a weekday service through the primary school holidays, and funding is allocated enough to ensure that 6 weeks of delivery through those school break. Historically, this has been delivered by the Kaka Point Surf Life Saving Club for the past 10 years. Previous to that, it was delivered by Surf Life Saving Otago. Last year, Surf Life Saving New Zealand took over the management of the program. This change was due to volunteer burnout, compliance costs, and a struggle to ensure that the beach was patrolled. Through the funding allocated last year, we were able to service the Kaka Point beach for 4 weeks in total, with a number of local members of the Kaka Point Club working as lifeguards. They were overseen by a supervisor based out of Dunedin and supported by local key club volunteers. We believe that the historical data that there is a need for a 6 week weekday service through Kaka Point based on the water and in water and on beach head counts taken over the last 10 years and the 6 week service that has been delivered in the past at Kaka Point. With the change in term dates and weather patterns, the majority of the delivery in the South Island is pushed out to 7 weeks, and the Christchurch City Council catchment up to 8 weeks at main beaches. So there is a need for a 6 week service. With Kaka Point being considered the gateway to the Catlins, and possibly, as Max mentioned before, a new surf club coming, even a greater focal point in the community, we believe that the community and those visiting the area should have access to a patrolled service during the holiday period, that they can rely on the ability to have a safe, fun space to swim at the beach, even if the howling southerly is blowing through. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, by the way.
Thank you for that, Stu. Questions, please, Councillor McAtamaney.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Stu. The government made the announcement last week. 60 million.
62 million.
Is that for capital expenditure only, or is operating expenditure?
Of that, it was split with us and the Coast Guard. So we get $11 million over 4 years. So $44 million in total. A number of that will go to capital expenditure. A number will go to compliance costs. We got funding a few years ago and that wasn't inflation adjusted. So it's basically trying to balance that out. Also, a couple of roles we put in place to support the delivery with clubs in the area. And majority of it will go on CapEx. Not Surf Life Saving New Zealand's CapEx, but the Surf Life Saving Club's CapEx.
Further questions to Councillor Barron?
Hi, thanks for this. In the submission there, it talks about 17 fatal drownings in the last 10 years. Did these occur within those flags at Kaka Point?
No, they're the statistics for the Otago area of all drownings.
And were they controlled beaches, or were they just random deaths at all over the coastline.
There'll be random deaths all through the coastline. So the majority of the risk we have along this coastline is scuba diving. I think that was the last drowning, was a scuba diving drowning, and it wasn't in between the flags.
Thank you.
Further questions, team? Stuart, I want to thank you once again for coming back. I also acknowledge we have already had a submitter, Mark from the Surf Club, acknowledging the interaction and the good work that you do and the way it does work, and so I want to acknowledge that and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate your submission.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Sid, Southern Youth Development, next man up's Garth. Welcome, Garth, how are you?
Good.
Same folder, page 331. So just for everyone's background, just to didn't pick up, Sid's the old Malcolm Trust, yes, a worker here, and Garth is the, I don't know either, the head of it. Welcome.
Thank you. Ko Garth tōku ingoa, so I whakapapa to Tairi, then family whānau to Kaiapoi, and then iwi all the way back to Scotland, Ōkainau. So, yeah, Malcolm, thank you, Brian, was Malcolm Trust, as a lot of people recognise, but we decided to rebrand a couple of years ago. 35 years we've been doing youth work. I've been part of that for 20 years. A couple of years ago, our general manager moved on, and I was the last one to step backwards, so I ended up being the new general manager. But it's a very passionate job that we have. We love to empower our young people to achieve their own successes. We do it uniquely by actually finding out what they want and then helping that to happen, rather than actually offering things that they don't necessarily want. So all of our work is doing with young people, not for young people. At the moment, we've got a large contingent of young people who have a lack of confidence, resilience, and opportunities. However, that is quite often a perceived thing that young people have. And our job is to work with their skills that they already have and strengthen those to empower them to be who they can be, not only for themselves, but for the community they live in. With COVID, obviously, has caused a few issues, and that will be an effect that could possibly be around for another 10 to 12 years. Already we're seeing in all areas the problems with those who missed out on their year 6. That's sort of where you got treated a little bit differently because you were the last year at primary school, or a year 8 and your last year intermediate, or even the year 13s now moving into university have all struggled because of the effect that those 2 years had and the ongoing effect. And I imagine there's going to be a huge issue in 12 odd years when all those babies that weren't able to have face-to-face contact with strangers are therefore going to move into the school system in teenage years. So what we endeavour to do is, and have been for the last 12 years so, is working with the Youth Council here at Clutha, but also working with the schools and just also other ones that fall through the gaps that aren't part of a group. Quite often there's funding for those who do very, very well. There's funding for those who don't do very, very well. But there's quite often nothing for those who are coasting or can't reach their full potential because they don't have an assistance somewhere along the way. So therefore we have a look at different aspects of things by working with the Youth Council to help strengthen the community, looking at mentoring, one-on-one or small groups, particularly with Seasons for Growth, looking at grief counselling for young people, very hard to get access to that anywhere, particularly in the South Island. And what we do at SID is we advocate for the Rakatahi. We understand, we walk beside them, but also at the same time we give the assistance where they're able to hear from us through relationships that were built with them that they can't hear from other adults, and providing that trusted adult or adults that they can actually turn to. So hence the submission.
Thank you. Questions, team? Councillor Herman.
Thank you for your submission. Look, out of all the submissions we've read, you guys would be one of the more financial that I've seen there. So I suppose that the question would be, do you really need the money? So you probably got nearly $1 million in the bank by the look of it.
We wish. We actually just missed out on a contract ironically, with mainstream governments and things like that, we had a very successful COMA program that came out of the COVID Recovery Fund, but it did so well they decided not to fund it again. Generally speaking, with any, our main funders is Ministry of Youth Development, but with the government funding, they only fund 70 to 80%. Hence the reason, obviously, too, that we only ask for a small percentage of what it costs us to run these programs and things like that, with the staffing and the travel and bits and pieces. So, unfortunately, no, we don't have the money. We are supported by the Otago Community Trust very well too, very good friend. But generally speaking, we look at different pockets of money anywhere we can get it to actually make it. We run on a oil is morning rag, because any money we have, we put back into our programs. And if we had more money, we'd hire more young youth workers. And that's why predominantly that's important for us. Unfortunately, I should have put that apology in from Tess King, who is the youth worker here. That's why we have a youth worker who's based in the community rather than outsiders coming in. Although I must say that most issues that we come across with young people is actually across all communities and all places. Just had the pleasure of working with Craighead High School or college up in Timaru, and they still have the same issue with the lack of resilience and confidence and things like that. They're the 6th highest receiver of donations in the country from parents. So unfortunately, money doesn't help either. It's actually the passion.
Thank you.
Further questions, Tim?
I'll just ask.
Councillor Barron, followed by Bill.
We submit that the council community grant funding therefore increases as follows, and you want 11,000 towards set-up costs for the bikes program. Yet further up, you've already fixed up 1,500 bikes since 2018. So what's the 11,000 for?
Oh, I think I'm coming back. Would you want me to do it now? Because I'm actually about to come back for that. It's a slightly different one. Submission.
Come back. Oh, you're back here again.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, we just stick, we will specifically just do this.
Yeah.
In one regard that we can.
Okay.
So I'll go to Councillor Volwela.
No. Your worship, just looking at that, can we just check the funding you get now versus what you're asking for the program? What is the actual increase being asked for?
I couldn't tell. I think it was about 20%.
So it is definitely, I mean, we all know what the funding is. I've got an idea here, but just checking from your application, you said increases, but it's not actually increasing by 46, it's just going to 46 of whatever we've previously funded.
Yes.
So as I read it, we presently pay 38,580, and I did have, is the request 46,296 plus 7,716 for the bikes, but now I've got that wrong as well. But that's the quantum.
Yeah.
We are presently paying 38, go to 46. Any further questions, team? If not, Garth, we'll see you henceforth. Thank you for assisting us in part one.
Thank you, Councillor.
Appreciate it.
Now.
Oh, fancy meeting people here.
Oh, I crossed one off. Done. Page 1. 361 we go to, okay? Welcome back. My apologies. I put a line through your twice. As you were, Flossie was gone.
A lot of people put a line through me, Brian. So for about 6 to 8 years, actually, as you can see with the number of bikes that we take out of the tip at DCC, we made a waste management joint partnership to look at taking bikes out of the tip and then reusing them. So what's happened, mainly in Dunedin, of course, is that a bike was getting thrown on the tip and they all get bulldozed away and they rot away, taking hundreds of years to disappear. And then we were lucky enough to have a staff member who was very passionate about cycling and started up this program, because all that has to be go into a landfill from a bicycle can fit in the palm of your hand, and that's it. Everything else is either recyclable or reusable. So what we developed in Dunedin, mainly around young people, was actually working together with young people for them to work on their own bikes or to to go to the tip and scrap out the ones that weren't very good, but look for the ones that were, take off the parts or re-establish that bike, then give them that bike that they worked on. Also, therefore, what we do with the money from the scrap metal is to then buy helmets and high-vis jackets and things that they were able to be safe and be able to use that bike. And that's been very, very successful. And then slowly but surely that's expanded. So now our young people are working on bicycles. We have a qualified engineer who then checks them off to make sure they're actually all road safe, which is part of the DCC's component that they wanted in there. And then those bikes are going now to kindergartens and other members of refugees and anyone who can't afford bikes. And also we get koha from those who can afford the bikes to get a very good quality bike. Our submission here is to then look at setting that up here in the Clutha district. Now we can run the youth side of it because we have, like I said, the youth worker. We've got the rooms down at St John's, which is for an after-school program, maybe a school holiday where they look at working on their own bikes. But at the same time, our proposal is to get Colin, who's our engineer, to come down and work with the volunteer group here that would like to take on and work with that themselves. So a lot of the cost is actually just a setup cost. It's a cost for all the equipment that we can get quite cheap, and also Colin to give up a day to come down here and look at how we can go through a bike, looking at someone who's qualified down here to be able to recognise the safety of the bike, and then using those bikes to, one, get back in the community, two, to recycle and to avoid that landfill. And the big one for us is to make sure that young people are involved, but it's actually for the community. We're not a recycling agency, and we're not sustainability, but we want those involved in anything that we do. And having young people access to transport actually gets rid of some of those lack of opportunities I spoke of in the last submission, is actually looking at having transport and things. And that's generally the bike program that we'd like to set up down here, looking at having volunteers that can go out there and scrap out a bike and actually reuse that metal for something else.
Novel idea, Garth. Questions, please. Councillor Bolwell.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Garth. That's a very interesting proposal. Do you need you'll need a storage area to store bikes, I presume, the bikes before they're worked on?
Yes. So basically what you need is you need someone who can identify whether a bike's worth keeping or not. So generally speaking, anywhere from the warehouse and the Kmart, no. In fact, you can hardly even get recycling out of those things. But generally, by looking at the brands, you can tell whether it's a good bike, and then looking at the parts. So generally speaking, the only thing that actually needs to be scrapped from any bicycle are the pedals in the seat and the rubber grips. Everything else can be recycled or reused. And even then, those bits can be used too, if they're actually quite good. So we can look at storage. So basically what can happen is if you've got people that identify whether a bike's good or not, you can go straight to the tip and do it there. Now, I'm not sure, unfortunately, about your recycling here, about whether they can actually just take them straight out of the pile on the tip and then bang, do it there and then put them back into where they need to be. Because in the Dunedin one, of course, they actually have the big skips there, so we can strip the bike down and throw it straight into the tip. And on Friday, we've got Everett's coming and pick up a massive pile of about 150 bikes that have all been scrapped out. So the storage would be useful, but generally speaking, you do it straight from the refuse.
Councillor Barron, did you have a question you wanted to?
No, it's answered.
If I may, just through to staff to Jules, you know, the Green Island tip has that site where you can, where you dump and you sort, whereas we have a tip face. There's rules, health and safety, work safe or something that you can't go up to the dump and start grabbing stuff, is that right?
Yep, through your worship, you do have to be careful with that, but we do have a transfer station plan, which would provide opportunity for that. And there's also we could direct people to leave them near our metal recycling at the bottom before they get up to the main tip. So there are ways to manage that.
They do have one in Dunedin, where no one can take the bikes at all, except for us, because of course they're worried about the liability if they let someone bring a bike that's been dumped there and they jump on it and it falls apart in front of the car. So therefore, all the bikes didn't even come through us.
Thank you, Your Worship, and welcome, Garth. Look, fantastic initiative, this one. Just, I might have missed this, but how did you come up with that setup cost, that $11,000 figure? Would that, I'd just be trying to scroll through this and get that breakdown and see where it came from.
We can probably come with a breakdown. I unfortunately don't have one today, but from talking with Colin and Mandy, who put the submission together, mainly you're looking at 3 sets of equipment. So you've got the bike stands that actually have to go in there. It's very, very hard to actually take apart a bicycle that's not actually on the stands. The stands tend to be a little bit more expensive. It's also 3 sets of equipment. So you've basically got 3 workstations. So to actually work on the bikes and things like that. There's a wage cost there with kind of like I said in the day and things like that. But that would be generally the most of it is actually the equipment. It's not that cheap to start with, of course. And then hopefully with the recycling of the metal that we can either make the money back or at least limit the costs here.
Thank you.
Further questions, team? This time you're dismissed.
Excellent.
Thank you very much
Thank you very
for
much.
coming all the way down. Thanks for the work that Sid does in our district. Appreciate it.
Not a problem, Brian. And if anyone else wants to come off the roof like Brian has a couple of times at the stadium, we'll be doing it again next year.
I had to strengthen it before I could do it. Okay, next one's up. It's our team from Sport Otago. So we've got Craig and James. Welcome, guys. So it is page 364. Welcome. Floor's yours.
Thanks, Your Worship. Oh, well, hey, yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Kia ora. Obviously, I think I've presented in front of most of you before, so I'm Craig from Sport Clutha, and I'll just introduce you to James Nation, who's our CEO of Sport Otago. So an apology from Owen Booth at GM, who couldn't be here today. Did have a video to play. I don't know if that's been set up or not. Does it have sound on it or not? Okay, we'll play that for 40 seconds and then we'll carry on with a bit of a chat. Cool, thanks for that. Just often I stand up here and just rattle off everything we've done the last year, and I mentioned you could probably get a bit sick of that, and I do too. I feel like I'm repeating myself every year. So kind of I wanted to talk a little bit about what you don't see, I guess, and a lot of that is, you know, facilitating and behind the scenes, assisting groups, sports clubs, funding. We've obviously got our own funding we provide through Te Manawa, Sporting Chance, health and safety, traffic, all that sort of boring stuff that's not exciting but it's got to be done. You know, and as an example, in June, Sport Group is holding a thing for those who run events in Otago South, and there's been interest from Canterbury. There's lots of issues in the event scenes at the moment, but for some areas with costs and that sort of thing. So getting everyone together in Clutha next month, and that's something that will probably progress on and benefits the opportunity. I know there's a new event potentially happening in Tapanui in Labour Weekend. Yeah, that's going to be a benefit to them as well. But I guess really it's listening to the community, linking with their community, and that sort of thing. I stood in front of you, I can't remember how many years ago now, 2 or 3, and I mentioned a 12-year-old child now consumes more sugar in that period than a 60-year-old person does. You know, that's just one of the issues we've got. Sugar. You know, we've got obesity, we've got heart disease, we've got diabetes. And I showed you that TikTok video. There's a TikTok video. That's what all the kids are on now. They're scrolling through their phones. And that's the problem. They're on their devices. They're eating rubbish. Well, not all of them are, but, you know, compared to what you were and I was at that age. And there's more distractions as well. Financially, things are difficult at the moment for people. Many parents are both working potentially. It's hard to get the kids to sport. It's hard for some of us to get volunteers in clubs and organisations. That makes things harder, and that's what Sport Clutha, I guess, ticks away at in the background. And then I guess in some aspects there's a lot of sport in Mount Clutha, and it doesn't have to be that way. So in the last year we've been training parents, providing equipment, so sort of satellite groups of sport, that are happening in Awaka, Clutha Valley, Milton, West Otago. I know is pretty self-sufficient over there. They pretty much run things themselves. But yeah, that's just an overview of behind the scenes, I guess. Last Thursday we had our Rugby Festival, just one of the events that we do. 90 teams, about 800 kids. We had 29 refs from South Otago High School who came along and were amazing. Year 12 students refereed for us on the day, did a great job. But it's about, bringing those kids together, giving them, I guess having fun, getting stuck in, catching up with mates, learning a bit of resilience, getting active for the day. And that's what we want. And what I like about those things is often you'll get schools will send a whole year group along, and it doesn't matter if little Johnny's never played sport before, he's in there doing it. Some of the kids who aren't really into being active or playing sport are there. So I'll just, one of the stories from last week, one of the dads approached me during the day and said, look, I've some major issues with my son. I think he was about 7. Doesn't have much confidence, low self-esteem, limited money in the family. This was the first opportunity that he'd ever had to play a team sport. And I think that shows the sort of what we do. He said it's the first time he's actually having fun out there. So since Thursday, Thursday he played his first Ripper Rugby. That was cool. Got him in, we linked him up with the club, the Mighty Toko Rugby Club. So he played Ripper for them on Saturday. Had his first game, linked him up yesterday. Last night he played his first game of basketball. We've linked him up with the gymnastics club. That's something he's going to do just to give him some more fundamental movement skills. He's going to do that next term. So that's just sort of, a lot of what we do in the background that people don't see. And then his dad phoned this morning and said, look, he's got more energy, his behaviour's changed massively at home, and I've never seen him so excited about anything. So, that's just one example of those 800 kids, which is cool. It's really cool, good to see. But that can, give that child that lifelong love of sport, and, people like that who are involved in sport, what they're like in the community. They're just good people who are involved in the community. So I just want to tell that story, I guess. Just in finishing up, I guess Sport Clutha have been involved, I think, since 2007. This is my 6th year. So if you've seen the financials, I'm not here for the money, but I love the job, and I thank you for the opportunity to be able to do what I do. It's fantastic. But like I've touched on, there is a lot of external factors impacting sport, play and active recreation at the moment, as I've said. And I think the Sport Clutha role is more important than it's ever been, probably since its inception. So we appreciate that resources are tight and every dollar adds up, but I believe that the impact of your investment is invaluable on the district and what we do. Sport Otago does have a new strategic plan that's coming out, and the proposed vision for that, and a little bit audacious you might say, but is Otago, the world's most active region. That's the aim. I'm excited about pushing that out, and hopefully with your support. So look, just a big thanks from Sport Clutha and Sport Otago for your support. And we hope that can continue. And James, have you anything that you want to?
No, I think your point's just around. Thank you very much for your support and the opportunity to speak. Just look, the sector is doing it really tough, and I think having somebody on the ground in the district is really important. From where we sit in Dunedin as head office, having those local contacts are gold for us. So I know it's vital in the community, and we're seeing that across the region and across New Zealand. So just thank you for your support.
And just in closing, I also just wanted to thank you for your support of the Cactus program. Really successful, looking like one starting in Milton, Lawrence, Municipal Lawrence sort of got something going over there. West Otago are looking at having something similar, but more of a fitness type thing. And yeah, just your support of the Rural Travel Fund as well is massive and has a massive impact. So thank you. That's all from me. Thanks.
Thank you, Craig. All the colleagues you're involved in, we appreciate it. Thank you too, James. Questions, team? Councillor Finch.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You do an amazing job in our region and our community, and it is really well appreciated and very, very important. There was a gentleman here the other day and he was wanting to start up a biking around a region. Could we send him your way to have assistance to be able to set that up?
Yep, that's what I'm here for. Yep, absolutely.
Great, because he's got great ideas and that he just needs the hand to be able to get it up and running and do it for the community. Thank you very much for that.
Further questions, team? Councillor Herman.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig, and nice to see you both along here. Hey, just a quick question. You referred to them as kids, so just remind us, you're talking about school age 5 to when they leave school. There's nothing preschool, nothing after you leave school, just school age kids?
Probably, yeah, like, I do a lot, I guess, with the primary schools, but we always do stuff too, doing stuff with senior citizens, and preschool as well.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
So, yeah, all the way through.
Right.
Yeah.
Further questions, team? Craig, just a pedantic one, because I was trying to work out where you were this year. So it's got funds being sought, the submission 49,427. Go over to the budget lines and it's 49,247.
Yeah, I think
that's just a typo.
Yes, it's a typo.
Are you about 46 this year? I was trying to get that in.
think
Looking
so.
in here.
48.
So you're going from 48 to 49. Sort of a
Just
small inflationary
Yeah,
adjustment.
that's all. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll find it somewhere. Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, sorry, any more questions, team? If not, thanks for what you do, team. Appreciate the time you put in.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back to the separate folder. So this morning, I think, or last night, welcome Theron. So we go to Theron's submission. Did everyone get it? Came through last night, I think. This morning, has everyone read it? Thank you, team. I'll take the silence as a yes. So, all read. Welcome, Theron. Floor's yours.
Hi there. First question is, why doesn't the council have a mailbox or a drop box at the door? Because this is the second time I've had to slide a submission through the door, underneath the door. My online one got eaten or something. It didn't get saved through the portal, so I had to redo it last night. Okay, but on to my thing. First of all, I take issue with what the Mayor said. For decades, the council has been successful managing its finances prudently. Maybe they did in the last few years, but in the last few years, wheels have fallen off with construction cost blowouts, fines, crazy debt, and legal fees. To back this up, the 28th of March, the ODT ran a headline, "Big Unbelievable Debt Not Sustainable." And then 12th of May 2023 in the Herald, company found guilty over knackered state of leaking wastewater treatment plants. 19th of August, ODT, over expenditure from the Clutha Streetscape divides Clutha District Council. These are all examples of the council wasting our money. It seems that the ratepayers are making all the sacrifices when the council just keeps on spending. Apart from this, I express my concern regarding the escalating costs associated with the Bruce Community Pool, initially estimated at $5.8 million in 2019. Now, the current project stands at a staggering $20 million. As a ratepayer, this significant increase raises valid concerns. We must strike a balance between investing in essential community projects and ensuring fiscal responsibility. While the Bruce Community Pool is undoubtedly important, we must also consider other critical needs within our area, such as the Kaka Point Lifesaving Club, public toilets, the West Otago Museum, and various other things are all asking for funds. Allocating so much solely to the pool risks compromising our ability to address these in other equally vital areas. Moreover, let us revisit the existing pool. Its continued use by our youth during summer challenges the immediate necessity for a complete replacement. We should try to find a way to make the existing pool good for everyone, given the economic climate. We must scrutinise these project costs carefully. I also ask whether the council has secured central government funding of the Three Waters Better Off funding package. The other question I'd like to ask is, did the existing cracks in the pool, are they due to draining the pool during the winter time and the water table below lifting it up and cracking it? And then after the repair, it drying out again underneath and the pool settled back down. I also asked, do the majority of councillors now still support the $20 million pool with all these increasing costs and all the other demands on the ratepayer? A ratepayer in Balclutha is looking at a 73% increase from the rates he's paying in 2023 to the rates he'll be paying in 2027. That's $100 a week, approximately in the year 2027. As opposed to a rural dairy farmer, rural dairy one, he currently pays $6,188 in rates now, and in 2027, he'll be paying $6,118, a 21% increase in rates for him. I feel that the urban dweller is facing a higher burden in rate rises. Even if you factor into the water increases in his water, he's still paying an extra 33% if he uses 4 units of water in 2027. Right, that's my thing. Now let you guys ask questions.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Harrop.
Thank you. You realise that most dairy farms would use a lot more than 4 units of water?
Maybe they do, but they're still not getting a huge, significant rate increase compared to the dweller. I mean, even if you used more than 4 units.
They're only one water too. They don't use stormwater or sewage, so it's really reflects
Yes,
what they're
I know
receiving.
that, but there's also multiple families living on a dairy farm normally.
Paying multiple services.
Further questions, Tate? Just a question I have to ask, and it flows on.
Yep.
Goes on from what you've been saying. Rural, as Councillor Herbert said, is rural one water, not urban 3 waters. So I ask you, the dichotomy that we have here, the real challenge is that primarily it is urban, despite the fact that colleagues had the Stop 3 Waters T-shirts on and the like. Over the next 11 years, over the next 10 years, we're looking at $611 million of CapEx and OpEx 3 waters to be divided primarily where the systems are. The urban, like you identified, 6,947 urban ratable units. How do we do it? You know, you've said to be more prudent to do it. The reality is we can't say no with the regulators. So what do we do?
You have to cut your other spending, like the Milton Pool. I mean, it's $20 million coming up to. Normally your projects blow out to more than that. So that's a saving we can make. It seems ratepayers faced with all the financial discretionary spending things, and you guys just keep spending our money.
You are aware that we don't have a wish to just spend the money and put the
Yeah, I know that.
So consequently,
that's the look we
tell
have.
us what we do with the $611 million over the next 10 years, primarily split between the 6,947 urban we can't say as you do that we've got to drop our spending because Te Matahara will make fine sure we don't. As you mentioned, we have been fined.
I
What
don't,
do we do?
I don't say drop the spending in your core infrastructure. It's other places where you're going to have to cut your cloth.
Further questions, team? Okay.
Sorry, we
Oh,
should.
yes.
Do you mind if we have that, please? Because I was just looking at the submission, and obviously you've spoken and asked quite a few questions.
I did.
And we're going to have your speaking notes.
Oh, okay.
Would that be all right? We could make a copy of it,
It's
back to you, 3 quarters, just that it's got all your questions. We can certainly make a copy of it for you, and you can take it back. Something like that. Sorry, Your Worship.
No, you're right, because I've got to look through and find Trevor's one. Yep, okay, so no, Theron, that we will, the staff will analyse, go through your submission, answer the questions. Just checking any further questions before Theron goes. Thank you very much for assisting
So
us.
did you guys secure a better off funding
Yeah.
for the pool? It's all.
Yeah, for the poll, that's different.
It's budgeted. There was 1.9 mil. Budget.
Okay, so last speaker for this session. Welcome back again, Trevor. Enjoyed yourself that much last time that you're back for a second round. Separate paper team, did everyone get the separate paper?
Yeah.
Floor's yours, Trevor.
Oh, thanks, Brian. Hopefully I can do it again, get to the end.
Yes.
Have been behaved. Thank you, councillor. Also, of course you know who I am. Firstly, thank you to Sonia and Cara. Somehow the email that I sent first, which I refused to use your online form, got mislaid. And just a quick answer to Councillor Martin's question. Should you be afraid of me, as in my introduction the other day? I'm involved in an integrated catchment group in Wacker, which is working towards better outcomes for our environment in the Catlins. There are multiple stakeholders involved. We're being assisted through the process by, hopefully I say it properly, Otakea, Okanui and Murahuku Runanga. One of the things that's been raised is illegal discharges by farmers, which is a concern, and it sort of swings with the members to urban discharges. Another little thing, should you be afraid of me, Councillor Martin? A decade ago, I was involved in a public forum. I submitted and pointed out the cost overruns of the Puna West Sewage Scheme, which CEO Hill, he comes in as the new CEO after that. And thirdly, whether I should be in your corner or not, I was involved in the prosecution by the ORC of the biofiltrate failures. So apologies for all that. Getting to a little bit more of my history. For the likes of Councillor Herbert West-Otago, Councillor Kennedy. My family's history in Otago goes back to the 1860s. Relative through marriage, Joel Wayne of Wayne's Hotel. On my maternal grandmother's side, my grandmother was a daughter, I believe, of a descendant of Job. And he had a store at Glenorr, so a store, roadhouse, accommodation. We then moved to my grandmother's, so maternal grandfather, who was Andrew Young. Her father was also Andrew Young Jr. With James Woodhouse, they found gold in the Tibet, also in the 1860s. So you've got the walking up, they go to Wayne's Hotel, continuing they go to Roxburgh. Jack George, a relative, was the Central Otago MP. And we're also related in West Otago to the Stuyvens, as well as in Warrapa, the late Walter, Pete and Mrs. Stuyven. The Stone House at Telford, those are also relatives, as are the Youngs at Kahuika, and a long time ago, the Houstons at Te Hatika. Basically in my verbal submission, I tried to address everything, predominantly in this one here. As you see at the start, I stated all the documents. I'll just briefly flick down there. So my driver of the, meeting existing standards for particularly sewage is it's sort of personal because it's gone back a long way. I did oppose the Purnambuco Sewage Scheme. Not sure the biofilter it doesn't work. So hopefully we together can work towards solving that problem soon. Had a bit of a dig also at the staff when you took over Three Waters. I don't know if they got excavators. I drive a digger, and generally I don't have a shovel. It's another thing to do a job. That a digger. Yeah, I raised also in the first 2 years you want a balanced budget, and it's going to be loan funded, which essentially is the result of the Three Waters going back in house. I also want to pay that back over 4 years, which, yeah, it's one thing to hold it as interest only for a couple of years. It's another thing to put it back in and then want to pay back in 2 years. But it's already sat there as interest only for a couple of years. And I sort of highlighted my experience in business, the 22 years running motels. My wife always gives me a hard time for paying the max. But during COVID, we did go interest only for 3 months, just until we figured out what the world was doing. And yeah, I run it overdraft anyway, so it didn't really make much difference. Briefly flicking on to the draft rates information, which I was told it doesn't sort of matter because it's just a draft anyway. For my property in Waka, I couldn't appeal QV valuation, although it had gone up, which isn't a bad thing if you're looking at selling. So I didn't want to reject anyway, but the multipliers for your district-wide rating, planning, regulatory and sewerage appear to be missing maybe a couple of zeros. You can sort of see my examples. District-wide facilities, last year, $20. Going on your multiplier, 2,200. Planning regulatory, 46. Going on your multiplier, 8,700. And sewage support was $5 and it's 475. So yeah, that's obviously probably a typo. The other thing is if it was a legal document, say a property transaction, and you missed the zero, it could be a big mistake that you didn't actually pick up. Briefly touching on, I've read quite a few of the submissions, fortunate enough to sit through one the other day. You support Women's Refuge, so I think they call it fun now. There's a nice presentation from a gentleman that, you know, the idea is to get the male out of the house if there's a problem and get them into a program within 24 hours. There is, however, no male support services, but I have been in touch with Male Support Services Southern, which is Dunedin. Often males, it's a bit tough because this is probably coming from a bit close to the heart. Often males have problems with courts, in my day SIFs, mental health, potentially Otago Health Board, the police, schools, lawyers, and clubs that your kids are involved with. Males in the Clutha district are involved, are subject to emotional, financial, and physical abuse. There is no formal men's support group. You have to access yourself, as I have, counselling to address PTSD, grief counselling, depression. And, you know, I myself have a suite of medical conditions brought on by a decade of problems. So that's one thing that has been in my mind. Yeah, like I'm just talking to counsellors. I was going to go into it a little bit further. Yeah, you know, for myself, it got as bad as attending a family group conference at SIFS with my brother as a support person, my sister and my father. When I left, my brother sent me a text. He's like, oh, that was really tough. And I could actually read it and I responded. It's like, yeah, it's been tough. For those who know the road around here, I sat at the intersection of Kakapeka Road and Freezing Works Road. And I waited. And I waited and I waited and I waited. Unfortunately, no one came along. Fortunately, no one came along. I then went to work and worked for another 4 hours. And you can see what I did from space. It's dead straight and it's dead flat. And that was my focus. So, you know, that's my story. There are those in our community that do not get support and do miss out, particularly males. And I was, yeah, so the thing that spurred my heart on a little bit was the fact that a male supports a woman's refuge, which that's fine. Putting a male perspective into getting the man support. As an example of what they do locally, probably a decade ago, we had a facility come into Milton, the Otago Corrections Facility, which is full of prisoners. Men's Support Services Southern, which are based in Dunedin, they're involved 1 day a week with coming down, interacting with prisoners, because when they're released, they have to be reintegrated back into society, and they have issues like prisoner housing. So, you know, we've basically got 400 blokes up there. They do the crime, they do the time, and at the end of that, they are like almost like a product of the system, almost like basically a waste product that we don't know what to do with. So yeah, and then if we move to Kaka Point toilets, I sort of put down there tongue in cheek that the money that was put into the Pūnawe Sewerage scheme soon after CO Hill arrived should be put back into the toilets. But in all fairness to the toilets, it's a district-wide asset, so that's where it should go. But have you considered squaring the ledger? It could be useful for the Surf Lifesaving Club or other things like the playground in KP. Going back to West Otago again, tongue in cheek, I'll admit that perhaps I was out of order, Councillor Herbert Kennedy. Up at Lockendorf, we had a Mengele silage chopper, which, hey, it's nothing special. And it sat there for a decade after I'd driven it for probably 15 years. Old technology, 1980s, 1984. There was nowhere in South Otago to put that piece of equipment. It was one of two brought into the country. And when I went to get major components for the drivetrain, they're in Germany. I have assistants at Everett, and I refused to make the phone call. It did end up at the Thornbury Club in Southland. So yeah, I probably procrastinated for 5 or 6 years. I would not scrap 6 tonne of scrap at $500 a tonne, and it went south. Just another thing for councillors, when you're involved in council, and you're doing, for me, quite a poignant moment was some years ago when, hopefully I can say, Councillor Cochrane John Cochrane from Clinton, ex-councillor, he had been involved in council for maybe, I don't know, perhaps a decade, 9 or 10 years, maybe 12 years. He submitted to the annual plan. One of the decisions that had been made by council had impacted a relative. But the point that was made to him is the impact on the relative was made by you, because you sat around the table and ticked the box and made the decision, which, yeah, okay, that's, yeah, that was a wee thing that I've always had in my mind about. You know, it's tough to sit there and make a decision. The awakening is when your friend, your neighbour, your relative is impacted, and you know, to acknowledge it was something I was involved with. On a final note, harking back to the Territorial Authority, the ORC, in their consultation documents, I don't think it was specifically consulted on the percentage increase. But due to the large amount of feedback and the affordability, staff, I see in today's OTT, and I know from my partner, they have conducted a review of focusing on must-dos. 396 submitters, 50 people spoke. An example is that staff identified savings could be made. They consulted on large-scale environmental projects. The majority of submitters supported $2 million being put into it. Staff reviewed it down to $500,000. And yeah, like a lot of work goes on behind the scenes. So hopefully, you know, you CEO and councillors, hopefully, you know, beyond the front counter, staff have actually had a good whack at look at whacking things off and making savings where necessary. Because you know, I for health reasons work 9 months of the year, so you know, like a squirrel, I have to put it away. And you know, I budget like 4 months ahead, but some people aren't able to do that. And you know, I've done it for 2 decades. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Trevor, and I also want to acknowledge and thank you for your honesty and what you said. Appreciate it. Gives an insight. Questions team. Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, and thanks, Trevor, for coming along again. Look, I probably congratulate you for the in-depth sort of reading that you do. I don't think too many of our submitters go to the bowels of the document and get right into it like you do, so good on you for that. In one sentence there you say, for the last 2 years, infrastructure upgrades have been funded by interest only. Unbelievable, but ratepayers weren't aware. Did you know that actually, particularly with the rural water schemes, they made those decisions? They were part of the decision-making process.
Yep.
So that's, just making sure you're aware of it.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Thank you.
Councillor Finch.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your submission. I just want to check with staff the district-wide facilities, the figures that Trevor has brought up. Have you had a chance to have a look at that and see if there was an error made? That we will do. Thank you.
Trevor, can I just question you? Because hand on heart, the 4%, why didn't you spend 6, 7%? And I put it to other submitters. So if I went back, say, 4 or 5 years ago, if we somehow, and not one person in my far too long in council, 20 whatever years, has ever said I want to pay more rates. But what you're saying is that, say, 5 years ago, if we had for some reason, we're going to increase the rates and spend it, we would have spent it on roading. I know fine well it would have been roading. There was that transition. But if, like you say, we should have spent more on Three Waters, not that we would have, but you surmise that we would, how would we have ever been able to say that we're acting prudently to put money aside for consents and standards that haven't been invented yet, for a system of Te Mataarawa that hasn't been formed or done yet, and that's good spender rates? We were openly, like every single other council in New Zealand, caught with the jump. But what would you have done 5 years ago if we had to come to you with that plan?
Yeah, hindsight's a great thing, looking back. The fact that now we're at the point that you can't address what we haven't done. Putting into my perspective, I've run motels for 20 years, built them, built two more, never put anything aside for improvements. And then I got lumbered with refurbishing 4. And then I got lumbered with refurbishing another 4. And it's like, lesson learned. You spend 40 grand, you didn't have it because you hadn't thought about, 20 years of people abusing your buildings. Although a lot of it was hidden, it was carpet, it was the occasional dint. The bones were good, but I can sort of see what you're saying. Again, even in my own situation, 17 years ago, I went from owning with my ex-wife 60% of a business, 66%, so we own 2/3 we own 2/3. So I went to owing 2/3. I went for 3 years fixed interest on 2 loans, one at 10, one at 11. I called it 11%. I called it 10%. I then spent the last 13 years fixed 3 monthly. I still call it 10%. And it's like, my wife thinks I'm crazy. But I get a mindset, and it's just, that's the way it is. I squirrel away the same amount every week. Don't know, it's sort of putting off the inevitable. Like, my costs in business went up every year. So I had to find that from somewhere. I couldn't borrow it because I have an overdraft that's a working overdraft, and it always stays, just below. It's in an ideal world, although it's strange, council would operate probably as harsh as what I do, as in, a lot of self-belief. Looking from the outside, it's like, it's crazy. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from, Brian. It's difficult to rate for something ahead and not do it because people don't like you squirreling away for cash. Like they like to see, the plot in the town planted, the road tar sealed, the bridge fixed, and you can't go out and sort of pay it.
It's, if I just drill a wee bit more, it's been more than that though, Trevor. 5 years ago, if you had told anyone around this table that we would be looking at $611 million of capex and opex, I would have said, no, you wouldn't. So I'd ask the next question. You've heard it before, 6,947, the total transformation that dropped us into there, the tomato with it doesn't give us a chance to have any latitude with the payment. How do we fulfill your questions on your submission with the reality we face, that hard and fast?
Yeah, okay. Good question. Well, my thing is I've already previously said is, my scenario with my bankers, I was pretty brave, pretty stupid. That's the first thing they told me. Talk to the regulator, extend it out a little bit. Also, the capex is, it's like owning a car. You've got to put the gas in the tank anyway. So you're going to pay for that anyway. So I sort of take the view that to throw 200 mil of operational expenditure in the air is like, that's just the stuff you're going to rate for anyway. So that is, the only thing you have a difficulty with is the other 40 for a decade. But yeah, it's, a lot of the failings are, as an example, Robbery Street's biofiltro. It is apparently, it looks to be good technology. The issue you have is when you have 5 consents and 5 plants that don't work, you've got a big hit of, I won't say what it is because it's probably get pulled up, but you've got a big pile of stuff that is all in your backyard all at once. And that's one of the things, like I understand even that, people ask me, it's like, how did they get to the stage of having so many consents? It's like, yeah, but you do have 5 at once. And it's like, yeah, you've got five solutions and no one knows what the answer is to that yet to sort.
I've also, just before I go to Councillor Graham, because the biofilter that you've mentioned a number of times, I don't think there's a councillor that was here when biofilter came through. But even if they were, okay, that would have been my 3-year hiatus. But every councillor has the privilege and responsibility of taking on. Yeah, we can't change the past. And that's what I think is such a key point. We've got to keep looking at the future because there are very few solutions to the present predicament in the past. But that's not a question, that's just a statement, I've realised at the last minute. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Trev. Always a pleasure to see you here. The staff will correct me if I'm wrong, but are you aware that the council cannot forward rate staff? You've got a supply service.
Yep.
So in essence, you see that the council must run on loans?
Yeah. But, well, as I say, without I can probably say it. Hopefully, my wife doesn't crucify me. My wife does work for the ORC, and that's one of the conversations she had. If only a decade ago we could have stuck it up by 2% to put it in the bank, and it's like, yeah, but you really can't, can you? Because open transparency, but But it's sort of like in an older world, you'd have a bigger depreciation account, and you'd actually depreciate at a higher rate, and you'd have actually squirreled it away, sort of like that. So instead of putting away 5%, you'd put away 8%, which another 3% for 20 years. But of course, I think I raised it the last time. A lot of, I was involved in the Kakapuna sewage scheme. I think surveying the set out for that was probably in the early 80s. And that was after WACC had gone in. So, it's been in for 45, 50 years. And it's, I'm the same. If it's functioning properly, it's out of sight, it's just okay. And at some point, it just sneaks up on you. And we're at that point, like the whole shebang. And sadly for the district, I think there's one plant complies, and it's like, the other thing with the plants, I ran this past someone the other day because I'm a practical thinker. If you've pumped water from Milton to Waihola and you're going to pump sewage from Stirling back to Clutha, a mega plant in Balclutha to pull the sewage from Waihola to Milton on the railway line, pick up Koi, bring in Clintons, maybe pull in Whackers through the railway tunnel. Is it worth considering $200 million in Clutha just to upgrade the whole place? Just like you're pumping from Clydevale, Greenfield, out to Lawrence. You're doing 48.5 k's of pipeline. You pump from Pernoware to Waka. It's just the same except it's sewage, not water.
So I will say to that, Trevor, that while water can go uphill, this council is very, very well versed at trying to push the other stuff uphill, because that's what our permanent task is. I want to thank you firstly for your honesty today, and also that we do appreciate the fact that you're scratching and pushing the boundaries and challenging our thinking, and that is the process, Trevor. So appreciate your input, appreciate your ongoing commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Councillors.
Now, councillors, we've got 19 minutes. Gregory, the opportunity's there if you wish to come forward, or if you feel more comfortable, you can wait till afterwards. He's coming, and I've got a file. Where's my run sheet? There's one. Where is my run sheet? Yeah, that's your run sheet. Hold on a tick, Gregory. I'm all over the place with pages.
I'm just going to chat now. This is just
Number
humorous
one.
part of the meeting. To put the mayor at ease, I'd like to state categorically now that nothing in my presentation will mention estrogen. Now, also something that's just a formality while you sort of come out to speed with the submission, which is quite simple, is that because this verbal submission is going to cover a number of issues, I would like the meeting's lead to perhaps stop after each issue, so people can ask questions, say relating to a particular topic before I move on to something else.
Tell you what, Gregory, even though it's me and I've been getting challenged at how poor I run a meeting, why don't we do it? We've got time up our sleeve a wee bit.
Great. Look, and I'd like to start on, I think you've read the submission. We will, on this submission is sort of on behalf of the petition that I organised that the council prioritise the three waters and roading. So that's where I'm coming from. If you link that into my own personal presentation that came previously, that's I just focused on the intention, the desire that council does not raise its debt ceiling, and work out other ways of keeping rates affordable. So there is a tie in there, obviously, as well. But basically, I'll be addressing some other issues and more substance. But again, I won't digress, but I'd like to make a comment that I've only been to West Otago twice in my life. It's in 70 years odd. And that was because of my connection with the Tomahaka Water Care Group. But I did visit the library, and it was nice. And I listened to this. I'm here to learn, not just to tell people what I think should happen. And I listened to the speaker from the Heriot Community Hall, not Heriot, West Otago, and I was quite it sort of made a lot of sense to me, this idea that you've got a community that's, say, 48 kilometres or more, as it actually might be 69. I've got it down here. It's quite a distance from 69 from Balclutha, and I think we're all committed. I know particularly the mayor is to vibrant, active local communities, and that sort of seemed to be, from the little I know and from the presentation, that seemed to be a very worthy project by integrating the library and the council service centre with the community centre behind. And so therefore, I imagine, as I say, there'd be advantages in terms of access and might even be security, for instance, if it's connected. Someday people might put security cameras in the hall facilities. and they could be monitored from the library. So it just seemed like a fantastic idea, and it warmed the cockles of my heart when after the meeting I saw the mayor sit down with the presenter, because whether I'm right or wrong, I'd like to see somebody who doesn't allow, tough times to get in the way of a great idea. And I think that's the thing too. We can't just throw everything out. If it's a really good idea, it'll make sense in good times and bad, especially when you look at things like, cost of maintenance versus renewal. Sometimes it's really a case that it's a balancing act. So you kind of need wisdom, as councillors, to make the right decision and say, well, okay, we won't go ahead, or we will go ahead by looking at the whole balance of things, the cost of debt, the cost of not doing something. So so that's just something that struck me as being worthy of comment, which actually is sort of outside of the strict parameter of what I'm speaking here today, but I didn't know about it last time. It's hard to speak in favour of or against everybody, but in terms of, so the Mayor has talked, we've got two levers, debt and rates, and I would argue that we've only actually got one lever, and that's rates, because debt is just delayed rates with an interest component, so it's just higher rates in a sense. So in ways that we can reduce, keep the debt down, and also minimise rate increases. So that's where we're coming from. So we focus on core services. But the first one I say is, like working with the water regulator to build or meet requirements over a longer time frame. I think I sort of covered that a little bit previously, saying that the interest cost of the council's debt, if we went up to 285 million, would easily be $15 million a year. Well, if you just spent that amount over a longer period of time without borrowing the money, I think the community would be in a better shape. And the other thing, was lobbying government for release from wellbeing requirements. And Councillor Finch sort of asked me a question relating to that, like if I written to my local MP, and I haven't yet. But I mean, it's also a council, I think it's accepted as council responsibility to kind of push back against things that make it harder for them to deliver, reasonable, in this case, rate increases. So the next, was there any, all good so far? Any questions?
Questions, team? Yeah, I've probably got a few, but I'll keep
okay, I've got a good memory. So I would suggest that we can get rid of economic and community development, save Philip $5 million over 3 years. And my reason for that is that it's this idea of integrating things into everybody's life. Like every CDC employee should be an agent for economic and community development. If you don't want this community to prosper, if that's not your ethos, you shouldn't be working for the council. Secondly, every business who could handle more customers, i.e. sell more washing machines, these people want the community to prosper. They're going to encourage anybody to move into town. And every parent who hopes that their child will find work and stay in the district must be, focused on the economic and community development. So I feel that all the responsibilities of that, of the economic and community development, can be taken as part of business as usual by everybody, or at least most of them, on an everyday basis. Any questions relating to my comments here?
We're that well versed and just wait until the end, Gregory.
Okay,
we'll, as I say, we'll keep our powder dry.
Good.
Oh, no, we won't.
Gregory, so your comments there, are they struggling to find them in your submission here?
I think what it is that like it was an online, it was also an online submission as well as in writing. And what happened is that that there are, there's sort of comments down the back. I think the council officers have kindly tried to put, comments into boxes where they could, but the actual petition itself wasn't broken down into,
That's where I'm struggling with your submission, what your comments you're making there at the moment. I can't seem to align them within your submission, that's all.
well, the
Or
alignment.
are you just adding to it, or as you go, or?
Sorry?
Are you adding to it? or
Yeah,
is this-
I am, and I think
I think that could be where it's quite confusing, because we're
Yeah.
not sticking to the task at hand.
Well, the only thing I say here is it's okay to say, look, and this is where we're coming from, just concentrate on core services, and people don't want a rates increase, they don't want to increase in borrowing, but how do you achieve that? So this is really that's where I'm adding to the submission. People have said, no, we can't afford these rates increases. We don't want high levels of borrowing. So what sort of areas? And so because it's my petition, I've had to kind of look at these things, and I'm just putting them before council to sort of decide. Well, you think about what I say, and if you don't agree, well, then you're the decision makers. I'm just putting things in there, but most of what I'm putting before you, has been the subject of discussion with other people, or it's come back. I've had a lot of discussion with a lot of people, and so I don't live in a hermit cave, so I hope it reflects other people's views.
So we've got Councillor Finch as well.
Thank you. Are you aware that two people have submitted twice? Larry Frost, and his was on the same date, and Mac McIntosh, and out of 3 pages, there's 46 that are not Clutha District Council addresses, like Kaitaia, Christchurch, Gore, Timaru, Invercargill, Christchurch, and 37 on the petition haven't even got an address. So some of these are not, from our area, so they're not paying rates in our area, and a lot of them have just got New Zealand and no address on where they are. So some of these are not relevant to our district for having signed the petition.
Well, I think, it's always going to be a portion of people. Like when you're trying to get people to fill out a petition form, you make it easy for people, not hard for people. And so, like as I say, I think you have to take it as a generality. Like if out of the 243 applicants, 100, if it turns out only half of them came from the Clutha district, would that invalidate their opinion?
Yes, because they're not paying rates to our.
No, but I'm saying, would it invalidate the opinion of the 120 who were ratepayers?
Not them, it wouldn't, but the rest that aren't paying, because, for instance, Auckland, I'm not paying rates up there, so I'm not going to submit on
Point
this.
of order, Your Worship, this is getting into a discussion. I think
Yeah.
the decision gets made when we'll come to the decision making time at that stage.
Sorry, Nick, can you please ask before you do that? Councillor's got a fair.
I do apologise. May I please take a photo for the group?
Yeah, if we'll sort that out just afterwards if we can. We're in the middle of the meeting. Gregory, if I can go on with a question and just to try and quantify, because I've been led to believe, and I could be wrong, and that's why I need you to clarify, that virtually all these signatures were taken on the night of the meeting up at the Town and Country.
I can't. I came up, it's my petition, but I didn't actually organise all the signatures, and I understand that these were, these were distributed, and as I was trying to explain to Councillor Finch, obviously you don't quiz people, something like that. They do it, it's a voluntary thing,
No, I'm just trying to get the timing and to try and get into context, the motivation, because right at that point, we were straddled with not being able to get the audited and correct information out. And there was a lot of misinformation at the time, and I'm trying to get the genesis, because I was told that virtually all of these were the signatures of those meetings, which was at a time when the information that we desperately wanted to get out couldn't, wasn't there from them, and it's in that context that I need to have the lens of the signatures. Was that when the signatures were taken?
I can't say, I'm sorry, but my question back to you would be, you know, that it's the request that these citizens, largely these citizens, have made for the council to prioritise those 4 areas. I don't know that they would necessarily be changed. And in fact, if we were looking at a 0 rates increase, you'd have to say, well, you know, like, what's the issue here?
Yeah.
But because we're looking at significant rates increase, I can't imagine anybody would have changed their mind.
What I'm getting to is that if it was that meeting that primarily they were signed, the misinformation around the 25% that was dominating the conversation does, I'm enraged for no reason, like you just said. If it doesn't exist, I may have never turned up, I may have never signed. And I've got to put that balance into the credence of the reasoning behind it.
Right, well, I understand where you're coming from, and as I say, we're looking for a glass darkly here, but I mean, if the council adopted, you know, one of my proposals, which is no increase in borrowing, then from what you've said, Mr. Mayor, we'd be looking at a 41% rate increase. So I think, you know, I don't know that anything's substantially changed, but I hear what you say.
So I am mindful of time, so we better crack on.
Right, okay. I mean, again, I'd say that climate change is a part of, you know, that no particular investment should be made in climate change. Climate change is everybody's responsibility. I'll give you an example of how you can integrate climate change into, for instance, council consenting process. But there's a little community, a lot of you may know, sort of Punawea, which is, it's on the coast, and there's a river that runs on one side, and you've got the lake on the other. And it's the hamlet, if you like, is not substantially above either the sea or the river level. So one way of incorporating climate change or resilience to climate change and would be like, there's been a modern practice of, you know, putting houses on a concrete slab more or less at ground level, whereas, you know, 50 years ago, almost all houses would be built on a set of piles which raised the floor level of a house 500 mil above the surrounding ground area. So obviously that's something that where you can just integrate, you know, just common sense climate change strategies in an area that may, you know, to improve its resilience to potential flood events. Anywhere you've got a river, you had a major, you know, major water deluge, anything's possible. So I'll move on from that for the sake of time, okay. And regarding the Milton Community Library and swimming pool, have we looked at repair and retention? Maybe things aren't as bad as they look. Now, if you look at the photo there, that's a footpath in Kiatoa Street and in Awaka, and I'm not submitting to get the council to spend money on that footpath. I note that the council is committed to spending $8 million on footpaths, and that's great. But if you looked at that and you can sort of see a hole in the footpath, that anybody who had a heel less than 50 millimetres wide was at risk of, you know, breaking their neck walking on a footpath. But it's not as bad, you know, maybe it relates to Milton. I'm not an expert, you know, you have to understand that I don't know everything about this district. But in isolation, that's shocking. But given that we don't have big surpluses, the footpath on the other side of the road is perfectly good. So there's no urgency. So as I say, I'm not quite sure whether there's options for repair and retention of the existing facilities, you know, the library and swimming pool. But the second point on the Milton pool which we're opposing, on the basis of prioritising those 4 areas. Would Milton residents really want the redevelopment if it was paid for by the 2,000 odd residents and surrounding areas? Who wouldn't want an upgrade, if others were paying for it? And so another, I could talk on for a while, but another example, like in terms of having a vibrant local communities, are people really likely to relocate to Milton because, you've got this new, this new redevelopment, which would be nice if we had the money, but if we haven't, and I'll give a personal example. Even though I'm a ratepayer in this area, I don't own a home in the Kuta district, and I'm a tenant in someone else's home, and so I consider, like everybody else, buying my own home. So I've looked in Milton, and I haven't bought anything yet, but the fact that it hasn't got a flash library, the library was fine when I went in there, or swimming pool, would not be any part of my consideration. Perhaps what I do often think of is the availability of medical services, but that's out of the area here. So if the reinstatement, repair and retention of the swimming pool wasn't practical for Milton, then perhaps a free shuttle from Milton to Balclutha Pool with vacant seats able to be occupied by shoppers, so you get a double benefit there. So, but I was kind of speaking, as I say, just off the cuff, saying, that redevelopment area, getting confused again, in West Otago, made sense from the little I know. But see, Tapanui is 69 kilometres from Balclutha. Milton's only 25. There's a real, you really have to say, well, how far away do you have to be from a very good pool and facilities, before you need to duplicate it? So, I could go on for the sake of time and respect to the Mayor. I'm trying to speed myself up. Any questions?
No, look, we should be heading towards the finish line.
Can we have a copy of his submission to go through?
Yeah, well, we'll get that.
Okay, well then I'll how many minutes have I had, Mr.?
You've had well over 20, which is, I take it that you're representing a fair number, but.
Okay, I'll run through these just as quick as bullet points out with respect to the meeting. So, waste minimisation, that's great, as long as it's cost neutral. Cargo Point toilets, how many people go to visit the toilets and then visit Nugget Point as an aside? If you go to Europe, you'll find that, you have to pay to use toilets. Just to have clean, serviceable toilets is a real asset to any visitor. Okay, and I'd like to put out a challenge to this councillors to make to the chief executive, and that is, like, years ago, you could live comfortably on a farm with 500 stock units. Today, you'd struggle with 1,000. And so, how about the council, the Mayor and Council gives the CEO a challenge to cut staff by 10% whilst maintaining services? I could talk about the library, but I don't want to be cut down. So, is there any questions relating to?
No, if you go to hit the finish line, Gregory, and then we'll do the questions.
Okay, well, I'll hit the finish line, sir.
Appreciate your in-depth response. Questions, councillors? All of that, councillors. Really? Right, now you caught me on the hop. I'll have questions. Right, I do have a question. Core service. The genesis of the submission and all the signatures was you want us to pull our heads in and stick to core services. And yet, to define core services and get mixed messages, because West Otago's Town Hall was possibly in yours, you're warming to them as a core service, but you're not warming to the swimming pool, not sure about Kaka Point. Would it be fair to say that council is entrusted with the maintenance of many, many different facilities, services, infrastructure, and they're all core service? Because I know that when I first came on council, the Kaitankata Hall, that the residents of Kaitankata said no more money to be spent on that. And then it fell over and they couldn't use it. And they had that big problem of having to come back up. So when you say only spend money on core services, do you honestly mean they are your only four? That's it. That's all the council does. Everything else, all the people that you've been here and heard speak, they go by the wayside.
The submission actually says to prioritise these things, and I'm not speaking to you as an expert. I'm speaking to you, with what I understand, and I'm hoping that other people have spoken around these issues, and then you'll come to the kind of balancing action. What I was sort of saying that, I mean, we'd have everything if it was free, and I was saying that if money had to be spent, you'd have to sort of, in terms of having vibrant communities, it's probably easy enough for people to travel from Milton to Balclutha, like where I'm staying at the moment at Awaka, that's 30 k's, that's a bit, further out. And obviously somebody in West Otago, you can't expect, that's 69 kilometres, you can't organise something and travel 69 kilometres practically, or, travel 69 kilometres to have a swimming pool. So what I'm saying is that I'm trying to encourage councillors to get the thrust of, what can we really cut back on and still maintain, vibrant, connected communities. It's like, is Milton really a separate township, or is it in effect a suburb of Balclutha with some green space between?
Further questions, team, or is there any questions? If not, thank you, Gregory, for the in-depth analysis and for going to the trouble of getting the signatures together. Appreciate it.
Just one last request.
Oh, for the longest speaker so far. 1 minute.
Can I stay for afternoon tea?
Of course you can. I don't know how we're going to carry the cost. It's not really core service, but we'll give it a shot. Hey team, because we've moved forward, it does, because we've got only 3 speakers, maybe we've got 4 for this next round. So let's come back at 3:30. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And Nat will take yours at 3. We'll take yours in that 3:30 bunch if that suits you. We've only got 1.
Have we got a coffee oven?
We've got councillor Armington.
Yeah, the councillor. Yeah. Right, so adjourn till 3:30. Well, what's the response? Everyone, just before we reconvene this, two different names. So it is Christine. Kia ora, Christine, sorry about the confusion here. I'm looking at a different name that had originally put the submission in. But welcome, thank you for your coming and assisting us with the process. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, and I'm happy to join you this afternoon. I imagine you've had a long day already and you're still going, so I'll be brief. You have our submission. So my name is Christine Sumner. I'm a science officer with SPCA, and we submitted on the long-term plan seeking partners to help fund one of our more important programs that we offer to people, and that is to help them financially get their cats desexed and microchipped. And this is for companion cats. In our submission, we outlined the many benefits for desexing and microchipping cats. There are typically two big reasons why we do it. We do it because people need help financially. We know this from research, it's the #1 reason why people are not desexing and microchipping their cats. We also know some folks just don't think it's important, but the cost is by far the biggest driver for it not happening. There's lots of welfare benefits for desexing cats, but importantly, it's one of the few tools we have to address stray cat problems in our communities. We know a proportion of cats are born each year to companion cats that were not planned. People didn't realize their cat can go into puberty quite early. They're pregnant, they have kittens. We get these kittens at our centers. A lot of people just cannot afford to keep them or they don't want them. All of these kittens face welfare risks. They might be sick, they're not being taken care of. But we also know these kittens coming from the companion cat population can go on to become stray cats of their own. They're not desexed. They then perpetuate these cycles we see in our communities with stray cats living and causing issues. So one of our biggest concerns is we want to reduce the number of kittens we see coming into our centers, and we want to be at the top of the cliff with this. So therefore, helping people financially microchip and desex their kittens is a huge priority for our organization. We work with a lot of different councils. We've worked with Auckland Council. We've worked locally with Dunedin. In fact, we're currently working with Dunedin to fund a snip and chip in the area that includes the area you're in. And this is a very popular program. It sells out very quickly. And so what we're doing is asking councils to consider working more with us and helping provide funding for this service. We have a website, we make it very easy. We're already running the program. There's reporting mechanisms where we are able to give good reports on how we're spending money to councils. And it's also a great way to foster positive relationships on the topic of cats within local areas. We know working together is a positive way forward. And this is a great way to support people in communities. I think I'm probably running out of time, so if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you for that. Questions, please, team. Councillor Finch, followed by Kennedy.
Thank you very much. How much do you ask council to contribute to each desexing and microchip, please?
We work with councils, they contribute different amounts. It's what is of what you're willing to, or what you're able to provide help with. We get the cost down to $30 for a voucher, so a person pays $30. We subsidize, depending on if it's a male or female cat, approximately, a male cat is just over $100 to desex, and a female cat would be closer to $180. So that kind of gives you a ballpark estimate for snip and chip. But again, we're working with local vets, they are local businesses, they will set their, they have costs that they have to work with as well. So that's a ballpark figure.
So do you have specific vets that you work with, or do you work with any vet at all?
We work with the vets who can work with us. It can be hard, vets are under a lot of pressure. It is a very, very busy profession. So not all vets are able to work with us, but we work with vets who will.
Thank you.
Councillor Kennedy.
Hi, don't know if you can see me, Michelle here. Just asking about the microchipping, because I know it's not, once you microchip a cat, it's not like the dogs where you can go and pick up a dog anywhere around the country and you can clock in and find that dog who it last, or where it last resided. And that doesn't work with cats, because I've had my own done before. So that is only going to work with certain vets as well?
Cats can be microchipped, and cats get registered on a national database that's run by the charity, the New Zealand Companion Animal Register, and that is accessible across the country. So cats are not registered with a local entity, that would be a national database. And that works with cats very well. In fact, it's the only way we actually can use microchips for cats.
Okay.
And yes, sorry, we work with that through the local veterinarians.
Councillor Palmer.
Thanks, Your Worship. Well, welcome, Christine. Look, I was unable to open your PDF, your supporting information, your PDF stuff. Was there any statistical information supporting how many cats procedures perhaps annually in the South Otago district? Or Otago?
In the South Otago district, I can absolutely get you those numbers. Since we've turned the program international, each year we desex nationally around 15 to 16,000 cats in New Zealand. But we've made this program national just about 3 years now, so that number is tracking well with what we've planned. But I can absolutely come back to you with the numbers for the local area. I don't have numbers to report on the current campaign, the Snip and Chip that includes Clutha, only because it's still running. So we still have to wait for those vouchers to get redeemed. But absolutely, we will be able to get those numbers to you.
Thank you.
Councillor Herbert.
Thank you. And my question is probably in the following along with another couple of councillors. You've just asked us to invite the Clutha District Council to help you achieve. I suppose we can't look. We need numbers to put into a budget, so it's really, it would be really nice to know a figure. We don't sort of have a crystal ball to rub. You're asking us to sort of help you, but to what extent financially are you asking for?
I don't have a number. What we normally work out is, because councils will, it's in many ways we're approaching you to continue talking about this, and councils will then specifically reach with our talk with our national desexing manager, and she works out those specific details. So unfortunately, I don't have a number for you, but as I said, we're willing to get cats desexed, and it really can be across the board what councils will offer to help. And if we can enter those conversations after the meeting, if you're interested.
Thank you.
Further question, Councillor Whelan.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Just sort of carrying on that theme there, is there sort of work, sort of a non-financial side that council can be involved with through our animal control officers to help promote or facilitate this program?
Yeah, that's a great question. Offering people the voucher is one thing, but actually getting those vouchers redeemed is another. So we've seen up in a council like Monterey, who supported us like $15,000 per year over the cost of 3 years, or time period 3 years. They also worked with us, their compliance officer, to just help people. It's this logistics, it's this reminder, it's actually getting cats to the veterinarian. That is also a barrier for people. So sometimes we see this role in the community that a compliance officer or an animal management officer can facilitate that, and that's actually quite important. Also, your animal management officers, I guarantee you will know where the hot spots are. These are folks where those are areas where there's a lot of kittens being born, and we see it. We get these calls, we get clusters of kittens in. This will be, and we just know this is an area where we want to target. So a lot of knowing that information is actually quite important towards getting these cats dissected microchip. And that can work closely with Snip and Chip. So someone has a voucher, but they might have another barrier, or maybe they need a nudge. Sometimes the compliance officers or the animal officers, there's a nudge factor that they can help and encourage to get the cat's microchip dissected. So there's a lot of different ways that it can work.
Thanks, Christine.
Councillor Finch.
Thank you. Do you have national statistics with desexing done throughout New Zealand through vet clinics?
Not through the vet clinics, but we know survey work with companion cat owners, which is a good estimate. And we know that New Zealanders are actually quite good at dissecting their cats. It's about anywhere from 88 to 92% of companion cat owners in surveys have responded that they dissect their cats. We're seeing a downward trend a little bit. So that's of course worrying us because cats are quite prolific. We don't need to see too much of a decrease in that number to see it really explode on the other end with kittens. But yeah, so it's more surveys with companion cat owners.
Yes, thank you.
Any further questions, team?
Just your worship, just one quick one. Did you mention that there's an existing snip and chip program that's including South Otago? Is that being funded by Dunedin?
Partially, yes. So Dunedin was able to provide some financial support this year, but we are also funding it as well.
Thank you for that. No further questions, team? If not, Christine, thank you very much for your contribution and assisting us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Kia ora. Okay, team, right, Nick. So Nick, LTP 27. Floor's yours, Nick.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Taranaki te maunga, ko Mata o te awa, ko Nick Rook toka ingoa, tēnā koutou katoa. Your worship, councillors, thank you for your time and attention. So I understand a few years ago, the previous government raised the bar on Three Waters standards in New Zealand, and in so doing, probably signed us up for what could reach $185 billion worth of expense on the infrastructure involved there. And this is responsible for rates rises across the country. I know the previous government had a solution. There were elements of that were very unpopular, and that's no longer an option. And nationally, we're still looking at this problem in terms of where do we find $185 billion. Now, the present government is currently rolling back, reviewing, repealing legislation and regulations left, right and centre. So my question is, I hope it's not a dumb one, is that not an option for this problem? I did a house build in Dunedin in 2017. There were lead pipes still feeding the water. So I do appreciate that much of our water infrastructure across the country needs upgrading. I'm just wondering if the bar is a little high and we have the option, whether this council would be prepared to team up with other councils and look at appealing to the central government to be looking at the Three Waters regulations and legislation and dialing that back. That's my question.
Well, it's a pretty simple one. It would be it will be answered, Nick, in the submission process, but for the last 5 years, we've been chewing away at whatever government at the time was in, trying to get the best deal for the Clutha district and the wider New Zealand Inc. Right at the moment, the collaborative work that's going on is ongoing, it's varied. We're looking at the city deals and what we can do, but we're also trying to get a response from government in more of a direction. It's not forthcoming at the moment. So the two things they have given us was some latitude around the timing of the LTP and unspecified as yet access to alternative means for debt servicing. That's what we've got to play with at the moment, but certainly on a daily basis, there is input from councils to try and get the government to at least be more aware of the absolute mess that all councils in New Zealand are in. But it shouldn't actually be a question answer time. My apologies. It's easier to do it that way though. Oh, is that the end of the presentation?
Depending on what is said to me, I may have follow-up.
Oh, no, we'll have questions. It doesn't go question answer though, Nick. You will have been here before, so there's questions.
Actually, I have.
But for you to come back for questions is not quite it. But Councillor Volwin.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick. You're wanting local government to put pressure on the central government regarding the regulations. Wouldn't it help if there was a sort of a groundswell from the people like yourself as well who made some noise about this and talk to your MP or minister of the relevant ministers to make the case as well, because the government's more likely to listen to a large number of people who may or may not vote for them, rather than just the councils who the government tries to keep at arm's length of it anyway. So I guess the question is, what steps are you taking in that regard yourself to lobby government?
That is a good question. The question that I've asked you, I've asked various people, not so much your sector, my sector, and virtually been laughed at. Repeal that legislation, that's never going to happen. And I just couldn't understand why it was not an option from certain quarters that I've asked. And it seems to be, the answer here is that it's not off the table. It just needs more momentum.
Yep, thank you.
I think I'm done.
Further questions, team? Yeah, I have one more. Nick. Genesis of Three Waters, I think, has been misrepresented time and again, that this has been a Labor-initiated national now taken on. Certainly over the last, what would it be? Would be 14 years ago. 13 years ago that I first came across it. The Three Waters, the genesis of it is actually DIA. First time I ever heard from a minister was Nick Smith. So are you aware that in saying that it is a two-bag, Labor came up with the Nationals, it isn't. It's a DIA solution.
Sorry, what is DIA? You mean?
Department of Internal Affairs have been working on this, to my knowledge, for well over a decade, and it was their solutions that the various governments at the time picked up on various forms. But to say that it is specifically this party and then that party's solution, I just wanted to know whether you're aware that that's wrong. It's actually DIA came up with initiatives, and it was who picked them up and to what extent.
Thank you for that.
Any further questions, team? Councillor Herbert.
Thank you. And just, you're here presenting on behalf of this submission. And in the submission, it refers to His Worship the Mayor, and I'll quote, "He is completely incapable of independent thought, and his predetermined ideas and goals should excuse him from any vote." Do you stand by those comments?
I don't think that's my submission, sir.
Huh?
No.
This is page 70.
No.
No.
27.
27.
Well, that would have made it a lively debate. Thank you, Councillor Herbert.
Apologies.
No problem. Who was that poor deluded soul?
Page 27, John. 27.
Right out. Further questions, team? No further questions. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers. Team, that brings to a conclusion a rather expurgated session. The Otago Federated, they have pulled out. The Otago Federated Farmers have pulled out, so that brings to an end. So whether we, because what I want to do is we may as well utilise this time.